Hello, welcome to my first video. Going to be probably pretty boring. This is just kind of an introduction to my garden. I live in an apartment, so everything is all container gardening. These two right here are mulberry trees. I bought them from as little 4-inch pots last year from Walmart.com. They are doing quite well. They're not the original plants. They are offshoots of the original stems. And since then, I got these two originals started, but I have a few others around here. Namely, this one on the end, which is a clone of one of those two. I don't remember exactly which one it was. Got one or two others that I cloned off of it, just because. See if I could do it. This right here is asparagus in its second year, starting to do pretty well, and several different tomatoes. First one, I don't remember the variety. I think it's just a salad tomato from grocery store that I got started. Then I have this one right here, which would be Champion, I believe the variety is. I still have the tag on that one. Got this from Home Depot. Champion 2. Bought two of these. Not bad tomatoes. I have two of those. Then I have some beefsteak. This one, and I believe this next one, which I both planted from seeds. I can't remember where I bought them, but bought them somewhere. This is one of 3 apple trees I planted last year, and the seeds I got. My girlfriend was working for Carvana. One of the customers gave her a couple apples. Took out some of the seeds, got 3 to sprout, and the trees are doing actually apparently rather decently. And from what I've seen, it's kind of a bad idea to propagate apples that way, mostly because you never know exactly what you're going to get. Might end up with an apple that doesn't taste well, and of course it's going to be years before I actually get any apples out of them. But I figured, what the hell, I wanted to see if I could do it. This one, last tomato, is also a salad tomato. I thought it was originally a pair of Roma tomato plants that I was doing, but now that I see the tomatoes, I guess they're salad tomatoes. And those are the other 2 apple trees. That empty pot over there with, I guess it's some pansies I planted before that kind of just keep growing back. That is a loquat, which actually, hopefully someday will actually, it's just below the surface. It's not rotted away, slowly growing its way up. Just from a loquat tree I found on one of my previous jobs. These bell peppers are actually doing rather decently, getting quite a few bell peppers out of these. I think there's 4 or 5 in there. Originally, I planted them last year from red bell pepper seeds that I got from the grocery store. Not actually the seeds. I bought bell peppers and took some of the seeds and sprouted them. And last year I got a couple of really malformed, horrible looking little bell peppers out of them that didn't do anything with them, but they survived the winter as practically just sticks, and then kept going, got some actual bell peppers out of them. So we'll see where that goes. I just kind of, something grows in there, I just kind of let it grow. This pot, obviously clover decided to make an appearance. I'm really happy with these mulberry trees. I got to liking mulberries when I used to live in Fresno, because there was this huge one in our apartment complex, and I made some jelly out of one of them back then, and it was really good. And it's not like you can find mulberries around very often. These, I believe, are pansies or something like that. I have just had a couple uh, these containers. I decided to put flowers in them to put some color out in front of my house or apartment. And this is a very poorly doing watermelon that's not really going to go anywhere, obviously. This, I thought, was actually a mulberry plant that I had found some mulberries, picked up some of the seeds, started growing it, and I thought it was mulberry, but the leaves, as it got older, seemed to change. So I'm not sure if it's a different variety of mulberry or what, but we'll see. That will eventually do something. One of the failed, mostly because I went to the hospital and had gallbladder surgery and wasn't able to water it. This was a clone of one of those other mulberry trees, and it was just a stick forever, and a couple leaves started popping up, and I was like, well, maybe it'll start taking off, but didn't really go anywhere. All this other is just pansies that kind of want to grow everywhere. The other annoying one is I had, as you see this right here, morning glories, which propagate like crazy, and I thought I got rid of them all, but one started growing, and well, I'll just leave it alone, let it do its thing. Let's see, down here, last year I had containers all along here, but I have an issue with the sun reflecting off our window, and then the window's up there, and it intensifies, and if I put things right here, which, one, they get a lot, they're mostly in the shade part of the day because of this fence, and as you can see, we don't exactly have a huge amount of sun, but we are facing south, so we get a decent amount, at least enough to get some of this stuff growing. But back to this tomato plant. This was cherry tomatoes, and that's just some random seed that started growing, and I'm starting to get cherry tomatoes out of it. So that's not too bad. And as to how I'm watering all of this, at least along this fence, is, well, our apartment complex has a drip irrigation system. And the weird thing about it is they leave their drip irrigation system on for these trees all the time. And I ended up finding an end to their drip irrigation system. And I just tapped into that end, put a little valve on it so I can turn it on and off, buried everything, and virtually all of those plants in the front of this fence right here are drip irrigated using the apartment complex's drip irrigation system. It's not using much water, considering the way that water's rated, paid for around here, where everything's lumped together and everybody pays a portion. It's not like where I'm really taking water from apartment complexes. Basically, I'm paying for everybody who uses a lot of water, and all the people who don't use any water are paying part of my bill. This is a watermelon plant planted at the same time as that little do-nothing plant, but this one actually is starting to take off. I do have a watermelon that is growing, and as I have learned, there are one important thing about watermelons, cantaloupes, cucumbers do the same thing, is there are two kinds of flowers, male and female. These ones right here are male, and I don't have a female flower yet, but in order to get any of these particular things growing, you need a female flower, which is what this one was, and it does need to get pollinated by a male flower. You can pollinate from the same plant, but for some reason I don't get a lot of bees around here, so sometimes I have to take a paintbrush and kind of do it manually. There's some of these trees down here that get tons of bees, but the bees just don't want to come down here and pollinate near my thing, which is also a large reason why I grow a lot of tomatoes, because tomatoes will self-pollinate. here, this little succulent, the only one I have, I found while working, and it was just kind of the top part. It was practically dead, wasn't even planted in the ground anymore, so I decided to grab it and try and save it. And apparently, yeah, I am succeeding. Slowly but surely, this thing is getting much better than what I originally started with. These are alpine strawberries, planted from seed from those little things in Walgreens. They have these little kits to grow your own strawberries or whatever. Well, those are alpine strawberries, which are a different variety of strawberry. And the thing about them is they are rather small. I don't know if they eventually start getting bigger as the plant matures, but I have, let's see if I can get to them. There they are. There's a couple growing right there. They don't really get much bigger than that right now. We'll see, but that's bigger than what they were when they started producing strawberries. This plant is not doing very well, but this I thought was mulberry. It actually, in fact, might be a maple tree. We'll figure that out eventually. This right here is another one of those clones from the mulberry trees over here, and so is this one right here. And then ivy I got from the grocery store. It's, after looking kind of bad for a little while, started taking off again. And then back here, a wonderful oak tree that's been this size for about 4 or 5 months. It was in this little 2-liter bottom right here for a long time. It wasn't going anywhere, wasn't dying either, so maybe if we give it a little more room, it'll decide to start taking off again, and I'll end up with more of an oak tree than just this little seedling. As you see, I am not exactly big on spending a whole lot of money on certain things. Like this pot right here I got because someone threw out, and it was a fake plant, and they decided to throw it out. I'm like, ooh, nice pot. And I grabbed it, brought it over, then I found out the whole thing was filled with spray foam, which took forever to cut and chop through, but I ended up with a decent little pot. A lot of these pots, right, like those pots right there, I got from DD's for like $1. I don't remember where I got this blue one. That one, I think it was some ornamental plant someone had that died, and didn't even have a hole for drainage in the bottom. I ended up luckily drilling through it with a regular drill bit very carefully, and was able to get a hole in there without destroying the pot. It was already had this crack in it, so who knows what I'll do with it. As to those two things right there, I do some crabbing sometimes, and seen other online videos of using milk crates to make crab traps, and people were throwing out these random crates right here, so I grabbed a couple and started making crab traps. But it's August 1st today, so here in California, Dungeness crab season will not start until November, and that itself is iffy for the particular area I am, or the San Francisco Bay, and that is because San Francisco Bay has an issue with whales going by, and for some reason recreational crab traps are included in the ban. But they'll allow hoop nets, which also have ropes. The whole thing, reasoning behind it is kind of shady anyway. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because whales, I mean, the only place I really go crabbing is Pacific Pier, and crabbing off a pier with a crab trap, you're not going to get a whale tangled up in the rope, because whales unfortunately don't make a habit of swimming under the pier just for fun, giving themselves an opportunity to get caught up in a rope. So it's kind of dumb that they have that rule right now. But you do what you do. You work with what you have. Oh, down here, a bunch of oil I need to recycle. I've just been lazy. I'm actually working as a mechanic, a lube tech. I could probably just take it into work. Just have to make sure to ask my boss if I can dump the oil there. Because when you take oil to Kragen, problem with them is a lot of time, oh, our thing is full. We can't take any more oil right now. They're usually lying. They just don't want to deal with it. So that's pretty much my overly long, kind of rambling little introductory video to my garden. Hopefully I actually get people to watch this stuff. I don't know. We'll see.